You're watching Tackle Talk Live, a show dedicated to giving you the inside scoop on what's happening on the lakes and waterways of our region, with a primary focus on Sam Rayburn and Toledo Bend. Your host, V&M Baits General Manager Kevin Jean and Camus Boats Pro Staffer Steve Graff. Two guys with years of tournament experience with Pro-Am circuits like ABA, BFLs, Toyota Series, and BASS Opens. Anglers willing to share their knowledge and to give you inside information to make you a better angler. So get ready to take some notes and learn exactly how anglers are catching the big stringers right here on Tackle Talk Live. Here are your hosts, Kevin Jean and Steve Graff.
Welcome to another edition of Tackle Talk Live here on March 20th March 21st, of 2023. I'm Camus Boats Pro Staffer Steve Graff, along with V&M General Manager Kevin Jean. And Kevin, today we're going to visit with BASS Pro and Toledo Bend guide Darold Gleason. We hadn't had Darold on in quite a while. We're going to get some good inside tips on Toledo Bend for you guys fishing this weekend over there.
Yeah, we do, Steve. Darold's been home. He's been home past several weeks. Normally, he hasn't been home much the last several years. We haven't had him on the show.
Right.
But he's been home the last several weeks. He's just leaving out, headed to the Classic this week. But kind of get us a breakdown on what's going on Toledo Bend. He's been fishing a lot. He can't be on the water starting this week, I believe, because of the Open. Now the new the off limits with the Open, they're not allowed to be on the water. So he's been on the water a good bit up to this week. So again, kind of get his breakdown to Toledo Bend, what's going on. I think it's going to be some interesting, his thoughts is exactly what's going on. Steve, I just don't think it's happened yet. Toledo Bend, Sam Rayburn, I don't think that major push of spawners has happened yet. So kind of get Daryl's breakdown and also talk about the upcoming Poche tournament this weekend on Toledo Bend. You got the BFL this weekend, Saturday, and then Sunday we'll have the V&M Baits tournament, and Darold will give us a breakdown on some tips of what he would be throwing if he was fishing the V&M Baits tournament this weekend.
I think part of the problem, Kev, right now is, of course, Monday night we had a low of like 29 degrees. I think tonight's low is 32. But after this, it looks like it warms back up for the next 10 days. It's in the 80s. It's in the 50s for the low. I'm hoping we're past the cold nights.
Supposed to be.
Yeah, we should be done with that. So the next month, Kevin, on Rayburn and Toledo could really be good.
No, it will be. It will be. It's just, we're coming into April here, and the first main hard push of spawners hasn't happened yet.
No, I agree. I agree.
Steve, also glad to be back in the studio.
Yeah, hey,
feels good to be back
at home here.
This week only, probably, but it was good to be in. I was coming down to Natchitoches to do some work today, so we was able to film from the studio. So it feels good to be back in studio where we first started. So.
That's right. Today we'll also, besides Darold Gleason, we're also going to wrap up the ABA Solo 150, and it had a great turnout. 94 anglers showed up for that event, and day one was canceled. We'll get into that a little bit more. A lot of guys were upset about it. Everybody's always upset when you cancel a day. We've all been there. It's all part of tournament bass fishing. Some guys love it. Some guys hate it. Some guys are just, on the fence either way. But we'll talk about the Solo 150, and we'll talk about upcoming events that'll be taking place over the next month, basically, on both Sam Rayburn and Toledo Bend. When we return, we'll talk with Darold Gleason, BASS Pro. You're watching Tackle Talk Live.
Toledo Health is a full-service primary and acute care clinic. Nurse practitioners Jarrett Rule and Melissa Vines bring quality health care that's needed and convenient to the area. Whether it's a stomach virus or a hook in your hand, Toledo Healthcare will try and meet all your healthcare needs. Appointments available and walk-ins are always welcome. So the next time you're feeling down at Toledo Bend, stop by Toledo Healthcare, located on Highway 6, just south of Toledo Town, or you can call 318-508-5323. For all your boating needs, check out Shreveport's newest marine dealer, The Boat Shop. Raymond Kidd and his great staff will take care of all your engine repair needs or anything else that needs fixing. A certified Yamaha Mercury dealer, they carry two of the best fishing boats on the market from Sea Arc and Camus. The Boat Shop is never short on trade-ins, as they're always willing and able to make you the best deal possible. Looking for great boat accessories? They're a full support garment and Minn Kota dealer. So the next time you're in the market for a new or used boat, or maybe you just need to service the boat you have, let the Boat Shop fix you up. To learn more, call 318-402-0399 or go to ShreveportBoatShop.com. The next time you're on I-49 just south of Natchitoches, Louisiana, stop by Cypress Knee Outdoors. A store within a store, Cypress Knee is located inside 3J's four-way. Whether you need gas, food, or drinks, they have it. While you're there, check out Cypress Knee Outdoors and pick up whatever hunting or fishing tackle you need. Top name brands like Strike King, Santone, Spro, or the #1 soft plastics made, V&M. On the hunting side, they carry guns from Mossberg, Winchester, and Remington. Plus, they've got a great supply of ammunition. Let John Abram and his staff show you everything Cypress Knee has to offer. Located just 1 mile east of 127 on I-49 or call 318-238-HUNT. You're watching Tackle Talk Live, a show dedicated to making you a better angler. Now back to the guys with all the inside scoop, Kevin Jean and Steve Graff.
You're watching Tackle Talk Live. Thank you for tuning us in today. This segment presented by Toledo Health, the Boat Shop, 3J's Four-Way, home of Cypress Knee Outdoors. Thank you, one and all. Appreciate you guys. And I also want to say, Kevin and I both want to say, thank you to each and every one of you that come up and talk to us at our tournaments. If you see us at a tackle shop, if you see us eating at a restaurant, which you're definitely liable to see us at a restaurant. But thank you for coming up. And I've had people just recognize my voice and say, hey, you're Tackle Talk Live. I say, yeah, me and Kevin Jean both do. Just thank you. We appreciate your input and your feedback. Thank you for tuning us in. We can't say thank you enough. And on the phone with us on the Tackle Talk hotline, we've got the man himself, one of the best anglers that I know, especially from Toledo Bend and having a great career out there on the Pro Tour, Darold Gleason. Daryl, buddy, man, how you doing?
Man, I'm doing well. Appreciate y'all having me on. And to kind of tag along what y'all were just saying, Kevin knows, like, how often would it have been to have something like this platform like you guys are doing, you know, like as an up-and-coming angler, 10, 12 years ago? It's been awesome. So, like, the fact that y'all are giving all the guys an opportunity to come on and start, promoting their sponsors and talking about the lakes and tournaments and all that, y'all are doing a great job.
Well, we appreciate that, Daryl, and it means a lot coming from you because we know you understand it. You understand this business and this industry, but Kevin and I, we just enjoy talking fishing. So, we try to tell guys what we try to do is just give you quality information that might help you go out and catch a few fish.
This is what everybody talks about every weekend after the tournament. Everybody talks about how they caught them and how they heard and how they heard this. So it's just one of those things. Hey, Toledo Bend Rayburn, there's enough anglers, there's enough going on here. Steve and I talking about his radio show is one of them things. Hey, we might as well do the podcast thing, get in that world, and this is the perfect place doing it. It's turned out well, and I appreciate the compliment, and we're gonna keep rolling with it, see where this thing takes us. But D, we know you've been home for a couple weeks. Kind of rare for you this time of year to be home for a couple weeks, especially February, March. But reason we wanted to get you on today, man, huge weekend. This weekend at Toledo Bend. You've got the Poche tournament on Saturday going out of Cypress Bend. 250 boats or so, Steve, I would say for sure.
Say that's probably right.
The BFL going out of San Miguel on Saturday as well.
Another 200 boats.
Hopefully.
Yeah.
And then Sunday, the V&M Baits tournament out of Cypress Bend. So big weekend going on Toledo Bend this weekend. So kind of tell us what you've seen the past couple of weeks that you've been on the water, been home and been on the water. I know you spent a good bit of time starting to practice a little bit for the Open coming up. So kind of tell us what you've seen going on Toledo Bend.
So, I mean, of course, I actually was very blessed and timed it right. I come back when it was still pretty warm.
Yeah.
And I went out and just sight fished and caught lots of fish. There were lots of fish up. But not the ones you're seeing weight in tournaments right now. So it seems to me like I'm gonna say maybe 20% of the fish have spawned or something like that. Like a very small percentage come up to me from what I saw, and then it seems to me like the names that are doing well right now, it's all off the bank a little. I don't necessarily think it's like the deep stuff going on, but like all your scopers and guys using forward sonar are still doing really well. The weights are still good. I keep up everything back home, so I'm seeing guys winning tournaments with these big bags and stuff, and you kind of know generally how they like to fish. So I do think I'm actually looking at the weather right now, and I see it.
This weekend's beautiful.
Yeah.
Now practice Thursday and Friday, not so much.
Yeah, a little storm system. Yeah.
They might get a little, but honestly, a lot of times that's a warm rain coming. Like I see
Could be.
warm weather, the lows aren't getting real bad. So I just think they got to rush to the bank any second now.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
even that rain may not, with it being a warm rain, it may not cool the water off for the temperatures. I saw 80 degrees just now on there. So
yeah.
I would sure think shallow water patterns are going to start being king at some point. But,
Daryl, do you agree with me here that the first big wave, we always have that real big wave is that first one. I know you sight fished several days, and we talked while you were doing that, but to me, in my opinion, that was just the ones that was eager to get up there. I don't believe the first big wave has happened.
No. I looked at hundreds of fish. I literally went out 5 or 6 days, daylight to dark, and just trolled and plucked as many of them as I could. I love catching them that way. It's something good. When you get a window to practice, it's good. But I do not think that the big wave come. I think if it would have stayed warm another few days, maybe they'd have come on. But I even saw several that I don't think spawned. They kind of were cruising when I saw them. I saw one that was probably close to 10 and several, 7 to 8 pound class. But they were all just kind of cruising. And generally, when you go to seeing that, you come back 3 days, 3 days later, 2 days later, and they're everywhere. And they never did. So they got held off. Those fronts held them off. And I think the big group is going to probably be
this weekend. Fingers crossed. This weekend.
I honestly could see this weekend being pretty wild.
Yeah. Well, I know Daryl at Sam Rayburn last weekend, starting on Thursday. When we first got there, water temperature was actually Wednesday. The water temperature was like 67, 68. In almost every area you went into, it could even get up to 70 in some pockets. But after that rain came through and that front came through, Saturday morning, day one was canceled on Friday. Saturday's tournament day, it was 59, 58 degree water temp. Almost a drop of 10 degrees. I knew it cooled off, but I didn't know it cooled off that much. Yeah,
and look, that's substantial, man. Like a lot of times, I'm kind of dealing with some similar situation right now on the road. It's 40 degrees outside. It's cold. The water temperature is still around 60. I don't think a lot of times if it does that for these little fronts that, it stays cold 4 or 5 days back home, I don't think the fish necessarily turn and swim back out to their wintering holes or anything.
Right.
I just think it puts them in a little negative mood. And I think that's why forward sonar now is doing so well, because you're able to actually kind of get in front of some fish and kind of irritate some fish that aren't being fished for on the bank. The ones on the bank kind of got up there and were, thinking about making love, and then they sold up a little bit when that big temperature drop comes. So,
well, even
it ain't so much that they leave, it's just that they just kind of get negative for a little while.
Even at Rayburn, you could see fish in the drains, which wouldn't, this time when that water temperature is 57, 58 degrees, hey, that's where you're supposed to be. That's where you need to be fishing. They were grouped up in the drains, but getting them to fire was another challenge. You could throw the kitchen sink. They just didn't seem like they wanted to bite.
Yeah, and that's something I don't know, I've done this a long time, and I'm a slow learner, but it took me a long time to kind of get – you have that pre-spawn phase where they fire in the drains, and you can catch them on, traps and chatterbaits and all that. But it always seems to me like when it warms up and they get love in their mind, and then that cold front comes, they might slip back out to the drains, but they're not pre-spawn fish anymore. They're not feeding. They are waiting to do the deed. So, that's why I just think you see the guys using forward sonar catch them so well, and then also, another way I've caught them in those situations pretty well is kind of just slowing down. That's why I like to throw a Carolina. You kind of know the locations they got to go to.
Yeah.
And the other factor at Toledo Bend we didn't mention was the water when I got home, the water had been falling pretty steady.
Yeah.
Right.
That's a big deal.
Well, and they're sucking it out. That to me is a very big deal. Is you get a foot. The water's not stable. The fish want to go up there and do their deal up shallow, and it's getting sucked out. From underneath them. So I think that has had a big deal to do with it. But also, Daryl, let me ask you this: how many of those fish say, "Screw this! I'm not running up there in a foot of water.
Yeah.
I'm going to do it. I'm going to do my deal in 8-10 foot out here on a stump."
Oh, I'm positive that happens, especially, we've always believed that on the south end.
Yeah.
It's all about that sun penetration and how far it gets down.
Yeah.
So, and honestly, with the water clarity that I saw, they can do it in, 4 to 6 foot on stumps and things like that. And
we can't see them.
You can't visibly see them. We can see them on sonar, but you can't visibly see them. So, I do think a lot of that happens, but, my last day on the water, it was 72 or 73 degree water temps. And I'm really looking at the week and I'm like, why did I not see them all? And the water, I felt like the water level was the only negative factor to why they didn't come, was that. And so that's the only thing I could think of why they didn't just, rush the banks and go crazy.
And Daryl, looking at the Toledo Bend lake levels, like there was a 10-day gain of 3.48 inches. And then in 24 hours, they lost 2.88 inches of water. I mean, does that heavy fluctuation make that big a difference on them bass, turning on and turning off?
The spawn, yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, during the spawn especially. And that's what I was noticing when I was home, the level, when it's at that like 169 to 170 and a half level, like a lot of the little spawning flats, that's like they got enough water on them to get them up there, but not so much they feel wonderful. If it gets up to 171, then they kind of get up there and get a little silly. And Kevin, you can think back to the years where we caught them spawning, not necessarily like on a bank, but literally on a flat in 2 or 3 foot of water.
Well, you take last weekend. Jared Lotta and Bart Blakelock won. They had 28 or whatever. Basically told us they're catching them on a grass flat, on moving baits. So in that 5 to 10 foot range. So I mean, you're 100% right what you're saying there. And that was just last weekend,
Yeah.
So, but now saying all that and the dropping the, keeping the water and, it rains and then they pull it back down is kind of having negative fish on the spawning. But Daryl, man, the grass on Toledo Bend, and that has helped the grass. I have been completely on this show saying this is awesome because it's keeping the water off the top of that grass, keeping the grass healthy.
Yeah.
And you're fishing on the lake. I mean, man, the grass is getting back to how it used to be. Knock on wood on Toledo Bend, and it's setting up right.
I was actually, I was kind of both proud and disappointed in a bunch of my buddies because I've heard like, hey, there's a little grass, there's a little grass, but no one had really told me that when I got down, in the south end of the lake, I would find like 12-foot grass. No one had told me it was that good. And look, that's why we're up to like 40-something, 10-pounders in the lunker program right now in Toledo. I mean, there's a direct correlation. The whole body of water, the whole ecosystem, when it has grass, it's better for all the anglers. It's better for all the animals, all the fish of every size. Just think now, like the brim and the shad, the cover they got to hide in. And the same for the bass. It just makes it better for everybody. And I was happy to see it. And that's the other thing. If they were to, SRA has strict guidelines that they have to go by. There's no one like wakes up and decides we're going to mess the spawn up and generate. They literally are a government-run organization. They have a grid of when it's at this level, we have to drop it. And I don't know those details. I just know it is regimented. That's how they do it. Yeah. But we both know the years where what kills the grass is when it gets super high in the spring, when the grass is starting to try to grow, and then they do have to really burn it down real fast. It sucks all that mud out of them creeks. Yep. And plus you have the cool water on top of it. It don't get as much sunlight. And those factors lead to the bad grass. So
and let's look at Sam Rayburn. Sam Rayburn's a 5-foot rise away from destroying all the grass. So because when it comes up at Rayburn, they don't drop it overnight. They leave that sucker up for a while to hold water back from downstream. And that will absolutely turn Rayburn from what it is right now over basically in a period of a month. It can be a totally different reservoir.
Yeah, and it kills it for to me, I'm not a biologist, but this is the time of the year that seems like the grass kind of grows. And if that happens, we've seen it at home and Rayburn, you don't get grass for the year. If it comes up 5 foot and it does go again until, maybe in the fall or the spring.
Right.
And,
that's right.
The big advantage, though, for our Sam Rayburn anglers is with it being less developed over there, not as many homes and things like that. There's hard cover. There's bushes and trees everywhere. So,
right.
The fish can transition to that. On Toledo, we haven't had that, and our water never does fluctuate like that. It's just ran different.
Yeah.
So, but having that grass back, man, you're going to see that lunker number. That's something I always refer to. The Lake Association does that lunker program. You're going to see that number just keep going up. And honestly, what I like seeing about it, when we have the grass like this, it's not just the guys that fish all the tournaments or the guides and things like that.
Right.
But you're seeing like your weekend people there. When you have grass to go fish, it helps you target. If you haven't been on the water, all week, you have something to fish on the weekend. So you're starting to see your weekend anglers.
Oh, they're everywhere. Toledo Bend is packed out.
Yeah, but you're starting to see them. They're able to have a little more success when we have that grass. It narrows it down to where everyone can catch them.
Exactly.
Well, last question here, because we know you got some other obligations you got to go and do. But this weekend, again, you've got 3 large tournaments on Toledo Bend. So give us your breakdown on, hey, this is how I would fish. This is what my suggestions, and then turn around and give me your breakdown on if I was fishing V&M. This was the bait I was be using, because again, the V&M Baits tournament, we can only use V&M Baits. So kind of give us your full breakdown on all of that.
Yeah, so, and obviously, again, Kevin, like looking back 10 years ago, man, I wish we had all these tournament options. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like the Poche tournament that Bert puts on, for his son. It's a great cause, which is awesome, but it's a large tournament. But I would be targeting the shallow water, looking at the areas they traditionally spawn, not necessarily on the bank.
That's not where I was wanting you to go with this. This is not what I was wanting you to tell everybody to go do.
That's what's going to happen, buddy. I'm sorry. I think this is a time of year to me, like you're fixing to see.
Yeah.
You'll see some of the names on the leaderboard change a little bit.
Yeah.
It's going to be a 10 foot and less deal. And I do think, unfortunately for those this weekend, I still think there's a lot of guys going to catch them in those mid depths, because the way Toledo Bend fish spawn in waves, we've only seen partial of one wave, so there's still probably 2 more waves to come. There's still going to be stable fish, but I look at those areas. So like I would, with it being cool this week, I would kind of start on those spawning flat areas or even banks. They spawn, and get out on the first drop and kind of work my way in if I'm out there scouting around. So jerk baits, Carolina rigs, all that kind of stuff. Toledo's always hard to pattern because of how diverse it is from one end to the other. But the depth change is a big deal. They're going to be coming from those ditches and stuff and starting to get up on the flats, thinking about doing the deed. Mm-hmm. And I do think now they might skip that whole rattle trap chatterbait bite and just get their hind end up there and do the deed.
Yeah. Once they get ready to go, they're going.
Yeah, especially, I know the lake level is lower than it was, let's say, 3 weeks or a month ago. But the main thing I look for is that stability. It's not up, down, up, down, up, down, a foot. As long as it's like staying pretty stable, they'll go ahead and go do the deed. So, naturally, I'm jealous. I had to leave, like we had off limits for the Open or whatever coming up. So I hadn't been on the water since last weekend or whatever. But, naturally I leave, and now the big bust is probably, about to happen.
Yeah, and the weather's finally stabilizing for the next 10 days in the 80s, 70s, and 80s, and then in the 50s at night. It's fixed to get right.
Yeah, love is in the air. It's going to be wild, man. It's going to be awesome.
Yeah.
You'll see some great weights. I think the Poche tournament is, you could see one of those over 30-pound bags win. And but more importantly, I think the way it's lining up, you're going to have to catch them throughout the field. So Kevin, if you're fishing that, you probably better, I wouldn't come in with 20, with any less than 20 and have my chest poked out too much. It's going to take, it's going to take a good bag to get paid, even with that many boats.
And honestly, let's just be honest here. Here, what I was wanting to do this week was, I'm going to practice Thursday, Friday. I'm fishing the Poche on Saturday. I was going to put my trolling motor on high and go down the bank, mark as many big ones as I could on a bed. But you know what? It's supposed to be blowing 20 and thunderstorms on Friday. So I'm not going to be able to do any of that.
Yeah.
No, it changes things. You're going to have to.
But Saturday's going to be perfect for it. Saturday's no wind, high sunshine, so it'll be perfect for it. But
yeah, you have to go old school and find them on tournament day.
Yeah.
Remember the day when we caught and coached ball, we didn't get to go practice. So we just show up on Saturday and hunt them while we're fishing.
Darryl, one of the things, that mid-lake area over there at Toledo Bend, the bass, I'm sure they can, year in and year out, the same areas are continuing to be productive during the spawn, right?
Yeah, a lot of times, and look, I don't want to ruin the whole premise of your show, but sometimes anglers say the same creeks over and over and over because that's what they hear. That don't always mean that's exactly the truth.
Yeah.
I mean, but yeah, traditionally, I mean, you look at Housen and like Pirates Cove and 6 Mile, those areas. That's just the major big creek arms, and they have secondary creeks in them, and they have the best cover. So I mean, those type places do produce. I have heard of some good bags coming from up north. I believe that's where the Despino tournament was won.
Yeah.
Was up north. And, I mean, I know a friend of mine that bought one of my boats a couple years ago, had big bass in the Texas Oilmans this weekend. And it was from up north, and it was 8-something pounder. So that's what makes Toledo special, though. You really – it makes it special, and it'll drive you crazy because it can happen anywhere on a water of that size. It's hard to break it down.
Yeah. That's true. 70 miles long. That's a lot of water.
Kevin, you want to talk about the V&M turn real fast?
Yeah, just kind of give us some things that you would be throwing, you'd have on the front deck.
Yeah. So obviously, I primarily fish below the bridge, like south end, not super stained water. But this last time I was home, every single day I had out a couple different plastics, V&M plastics, rigged different ways. So I had like a wacky chopstick. Of course, I like Gleason's candy and a lot of the plastics, and the pork shad. Man, I did like well at Seminole on the pork shad and Gleason's candy with a split shot above it, like a really light clip-on weight. And I'm throwing those in like spawning areas, like you're saying on Friday when it's super windy. You can't see the fish, but you can see light spots on points and things like that.
Yeah. So
I put my power poles down and throw those style baits there. As far as actually bed fishing, man, there's honestly 2 things I had on my deck the whole time is a white V&M J-bug, just because you can see it and because of the size of it, I just love it. And Kevin knows based on how many of these I order and go through, I love the little flat wild. That's our little beaver style bait. And I throw it in Delta Melon, which is kind of like a 420 kind of color, kind of a laminate watermelon red. But it's the size of that little thing. Like, you don't have to worry about them necessarily, like getting the pinchers. It seems like when they pick it up, it's a good size, and the way it collapses, it has a great hookup ratio.
Right.
So, and I would use those same type colors if I was fishing a little deeper Carolina rigging or, throwing a football jig. That Gleason's candy is like the only color I seem to buy anymore. Or order.
Yeah, it's all. It's in my box. It's in my boat right now.
Steve's a believer. You don't have to make Steve a believer.
I am a firm believer in that color. Now I'm gonna say this,
man. And look, I use it on the road. It's something I truly believe in. I literally have a Tupperware that probably weighs 70 pounds, and it's wrote Gleason's candy. I just have backups of everything, and I do share with some of the guys on the road occasionally to help them out. But the cool thing with that white J-bug as well, Kevin knows too, it's something we can slip on a swim jig or like a chatterbait. So like you're talking about, if you're not getting to practice, pick up a jig or a swim jig or a chatterbait, and just you can burn down the bank, cover some water, and you can catch some of those staging fish while you're still looking for some on the beds if you're doing that as well.
One thing you just briefly touched on a minute ago, and we'll go back to it real quick because this was happening last weekend on Rayburn, to me especially. Fish are hitting short. In other words, you throwing a 6 or 8 inch lizard, they're picking the tail up and walking off, and you set the hook and you ain't got nothing there. But so I went to smaller profile baits like the J-bug, and they tend to get those baits better than they do the big long worm or the trick worm or whatever else you want to throw that's got some length to it. So
I mean, the key thing to think anytime you're fishing those spawning areas is you're not fishing for fish that are hungry. They are literally they're doing their job trying to get the lures away. So, a lot of times like if they eat the tail off a lizard or something, that's when I throw back in the little pork shad or even the little Delta Melon, flat wild, because it just seems like they get them a little better. But the other tip I'll tell you is that happens, you need to be making a lot of casts back to that spot.
Yes, absolutely.
A lot of casts. It takes a lot of patience, and I've learned that just from visually looking at them. Sometimes you're fishing in those little shallow areas, and they'll peck at it, and you ride it off sometimes, oh, that was a little one. Yeah. But that's not always the case. The big ones are about the same way then. So,
But
Yeah, I mean, overall, I am jealous. I am off freezing my rear end off and not there to.
I'll send you pictures. Don't worry. If it goes down and when it goes down, I'll send you pictures. Don't worry. You've done it to me enough.
Yeah, I don't know that I want that because it just seems like everywhere I travel to now, it's cold fronts and muddy water and tough fishing. So.
Yeah. You guys have had it kind of rough to start the year. I'm just like, my gosh, they can't catch a break early.
Yeah, but we're in a good spot, Steve. Like, I'm off to a good start.
He's fishing well.
Yeah, it can be cold as long as I keep catching them. That's all I worry
about. There you go. That's all that matters.
Good luck to all the guys fishing out there, man. Like, I'm jealous. Again, there's so many big tournaments now starting to come back to Toledo Bend and drawing big numbers and catching big fish. It's just great to see for the area, man.
Yeah.
Well, you got a big one coming up. You're fishing on Toledo Bend next month. Got the Open. Last time it came here, you were the Open champion. So, man, best of luck to you, and we'll be cheering you on.
If you need some advice, listen to Tackle Talk Live.
I can't be on the water, but I can listen to all of that. So I'll be listening like crazy. So appreciate you guys, man.
All right. Thank you,
Thanks,
Daryl.
Daryl.
Thank y'all, man. Bye-bye.
All right. Hey, you don't get no better than Darold Gleason. I don't care what you think, who we have on. He's Kevin, he's got so much knowledge, especially of Toledo Bend. I mean, it's crazy.
Yeah.
And you can know too much. That's why when he won on Toledo Bend, the hardest thing for an angler to do is win on their home body of water.
Oh, absolutely. You got too many things going through your head of what you want to do, somewhere you want to be.
Yeah, should have started there instead of here.
Especially in a big tournament when there's a lot of pressure on you and you know what you need to go do. And it's extremely hard. It is very, very hard to do.
When we return, we're going to wrap up last week's ABA Solo 150. It was stop number 1 of that tour on Sam Rayburn. And we'll preview upcoming events for both Toledo Bend and Sam Rayburn. You're watching Tackle Talk Live. We'll be right back.
Are you looking for the finest custom-built rods ever made? Then look no further than Pride Rods. Fishing rods built to last and made in Montgomery, Texas. Constructed by Mr. Billy Kistler with the finest Gary Loomis North Fork composite blanks available. They offer a complete line of both spinning and casting rods for both fresh and salt water. Pride Rods do more than pass the eye test. They excel in performance as well. Ask your local tackle dealer if they carry Pride Rods and pick one up and try it for yourself. You'll see why so many anglers are using Pride Rods. To learn more, go to priderods.com or call 832-418-6040. The next time you're headed for Toledo Bend or Sam Rayburn, stop by Keith's Toledo Bend Tackle. They have an awesome supply of everything you'll need to catch the big ones. Whether your trip calls for bass fishing, white perch tackle, catfish bait, or the ultimate fighting shiners, Keith's Tackle has you covered. Keith and former Elite Series pro Ben Matsubu also have the latest information on what, how, and where you need to be fishing on Sam Rayburn or the Bend. So for all your tackle needs, check out Keith's Toledo Bend Tackle, located just off Highway 21 on the Texas side of Toledo Bend, or call 409-625-0181. The Lakes Insurance Agency is an independent insurance agency that has been taking care of Texans' insurance needs for over 25 years, offering auto, homeowners, boat, RV, life, health, and commercial insurance. Owner Clark Moore is a local guide and tournament angler who understands your insurance needs and wants to be your go-to guy for all your insurance needs. For a free quote, give him a call and see why so many Texans trust the Lake Insurance Agency. Located at 805 Southeast Stalling Suite 3, Nacogdoches, Texas, or call 936-205-4467. You're watching Tackle Talk Live, a show dedicated to making you a better angler. Now back to the guys with all the inside scoop, Kevin Jean and Steve Graff.
Welcome back to Tackle Talk Live. This segment presented by Pride Rods, Keith's Toledo Bend Tackle, and the Lakes Insurance of Nacogdoches, Texas. 2 locations, one in Nacogdoches and one in Broadus, Texas, right there on the banks of Sam Rayburn Reservoir. And we're going to get right in there real quick. The ABA Solo 150 results. Congratulations to Chris Wayan. Good job, good promotion, getting the numbers up in this event, in this circuit, because we've been averaging about 50 boats, went to 94, and there was a lot of guys that called in Monday to Chris, probably 8 to 10 guys trying to get in, would have busted 100. Guys, always remember the Friday before is the deadline. I'm going to give you the deadline for Lake of the Pines.
Well, and I'll be honest with you, I was one of those guys. I knew that we couldn't, but I was kind of on the verge because I didn't know if I would be able to fish or not just because of my daughter.
Right.
So it was kind of, I'm not knowing until the week of. And looking back at it this past week, I probably would have fished if I could have registered Tuesday, Wednesday. Totally get why Chris does it.
Oh, yeah.
But I didn't know the weekend before if I was going to be able to fish or not.
Right. And of course, that's an ABA rule. That's just something which all circuits have their own set of rules. And but anyway, so just letting you know, I'll give you the date. Excuse me. The final date to register for the Lake of the Pines event coming up, which will be the next event for the Solo 150 in April. The results, Kevin, man, I tell you what, some of these guys caught them, and a lot of guys didn't catch them.
Who's that guy in first? Has he ever won a tournament before?
He's a guy that I know, talking to some other anglers before the tournament, his name was the first one mentioned by every person. Cole Moore is the guy you're going to have to beat. And everybody felt like he was on 30-pound bag, and he wasn't. He was on 32-pound bag.
Oh, it should be 33, 32.94.
Really, almost 33.
Steve, let's just be honest with it. It's the fish are still in a pre-spawn, I'm going to say pattern, but in a stage. They're still holding.
Right.
And the way to win it right now is let's just be honest, it's with a live scope. Yeah. And in my opinion, Cole is the best there is out there with it. And he's proven that.
Oh,
he has proven that with what how many tournaments he has won over the past 2 years. And that now, I think it's all fixing to change because they're fixing to go, like Darold just said, they're fixing to go running to the bank.
Yeah.
So it's going to change a lot. But the fish are still holding kind of in that pre-spawn pattern. And he is the best there is between Toledo and Rayburn, in my opinion, with the live scope of finding them and catching them.
Well, and with the spawn, I look at it kind of like a new body of water nobody's been to. It's an equalizer. It levels the playing field, and that's what the spawn will do because your shallow water guys will have a shot to catch big fish like that on a consistent basis.
Even post spawn, they'll group up on some points here, there's some hard spots. But right now, those fish are more hanging out.
Yep.
And that is where the live scope really comes into play when those fish are just kind of hanging out, waiting to move. He's able to target those fish a little bit better. Yes, when the spawn happens, pre-spawn happens, it's not going to be as much of a live scope show as it is every year this time of year. But, those fish are still hanging out. The cold front y'all had moved through with all the wind. The fish just kind of froze up, and he was able to pinpoint them. I would be willing to – I haven't talked to Cole, but knowing him as good as I do, I'll be willing to bet he saw every fish on live scope that he caught.
Yeah. And those of you that I know a lot of guys were upset with Friday cancellation. The forecast was for 20 to 25 mile an hour winds, gusts up to 35. You got to understand, as a tournament director, Chris Wayne has to make a decision not in the best interest of a handful of guys that are on some fish. He makes it in the safety interest of everybody involved. And I'll be honest with you, I drove to the boat ramp at Castle Boykin. It would have been a fun day trying to put on trailer or get off the trailer at Castle Boykin on Friday. The wind was blowing dead in on that ramp. It was a northeast wind. I mean, it was just pounding. And Saturday, it was great. We had no issues with the wind whatsoever. Everybody could get around and fish. But understand, Chris is making these decisions for safety reasons, and he's got guidelines he has to follow from ABA. It's not just Chris Wayne saying, "No, we're not fishing today." I mean, there's a team of people involved in that decision-making process. So, again, we all hate to be canceled. We all hate it, but it is what it is.
Well, what's the sports saying? You're saving the player from himself.
Yes, exactly.
As fishermen, because we all know. There would have been 20 or 30 said, I can make it.
Oh, yeah.
And we're fishing for a lot of money. Don't get this wrong. We're a lot of money online. We spend a lot of money, and you're always going to have. So I think it's kind of goes back to the sports quote of we're saving the player from himself.
Exactly. Nope, that's a great illustration right there. Second place in this event, Aaron Freeman from Montgomery, Texas. He had 5 fish for $28.90. Chad Marler from Jasper, Texas, the local angler there. He had 5 fish for $22.13. He had a $6.98 kicker. And fourth place was Chris Lewis from Hallsville, Texas. He had 5 fish for $21.06. Brennan Flick from West Monroe, Louisiana, had 3 fish for $21.05. So he had 3 7-pounders.
That's the thing. He had 3 for $21.05. and his big fish was 7.6.
Yes.
So he had 3
Yeah.
7-pounders. But Steve, look back at second place. Aaron Freeman had 28.90. You know what his big fish was?
Yeah. 587.
So he had like all 5.5 pounders.
Exactly.
So I mean, they that and those 7s I would be willing to get are staging fish that were all staged up together.
Yeah, and Cole, the difference is Cole got the kicker.
Yeah.
He got the 998 kicker that he needed, that you need to win these kind of events.
Yeah.
And so congratulations to him. Let's see here. 6th place, Garrett Hilton, who we've had on the show. I actually visited with Garrett that morning before takeoff from Beaumont, Texas. He had 5 fish for $19.50. Richard Wagnon from Jasper, Texas, another local, was 7th with $19.15. Wyatt Frankins from Corrigan, Texas, 5 fish for $18.57. 9th place, Justin Morton. Elby, is that?
Etol. Justin Morton.
I'm sorry, Etol, Texas. 5 fish for $18.11. And in 10th place, Shane Howell from Franklin, Texas, 5 fish for $15.53. And I think 18th was the last check. 13.20. Bill Bean from Eufaula, Oklahoma.
13 pounds to get a check.
13.20 got you a check in this event. So our good friend Kevin Lazion was 13th from Dry Prong. He had 5 fish for 14 pounds. That's 2 weeks in a row he's weighed 14. Last week he was second with 14, to show you the difference in what a difference a week can make. And but congratulations to all you guys. It was, like I said, well attended, great event. Really looking forward to going to Lake of the Pines. I think it's going to be probably going to be some guys show up at Lake of the Pines that didn't fish this one.
Now, when is that one?
I will give you that here in just a second. That's going to be
April
Solo
28th,
150,
29th.
April 28th and 29th out of Lakeside Park. And looking forward to that event for the next Solo 150 event.
Yeah.
So, all right, Kevin, what else we got here?
Upcoming events this weekend, I think we've already kind of hit on a little bit. Texas Team Trail will be at Sam Rayburn, March 25th. BFL, Toledo Bend, March 25th. Poche Tournament, Toledo Bend, March 25th. The V&M Baits Tournament, March 26th on Sunday. We will be doing registration Saturday evening from the Poche. We'll start at the Poche weigh-in. Register a couple hours after that. I forget the exact hours we have down, but we will start registration at the Poche weigh-in. We'll be off over to the side. And Steve, I want to jump in to talk a little bit about that. So I talked a little bit about it on last week's show. V&M Baits Tournament. Yes, it is V&M Baits only. Terminal tackle does not matter.
Right.
Shaky heads, A-rig. I'm going to count A-rig as a terminal tackle in this category.
Tokyo rigs.
Any hook weight, that does not matter. It has to have a V&M plastic or jig on it. I mean, a plastic on it. If it is a jig, it has to be a V&M Baits jig with a V&M Baits trailer. Has to have that.
Both.
Yes. Any jig has to be V&M. I'm going to go ahead and be honest. The spinner baits are hard to find right now. We've had problems getting certain parts for spinner baits and stuff like that.
But that doesn't change the fact they still have to be V&M.
If you are fishing it has to be a V&M bait. The only thing in this tournament that does not have to be V&M is terminal tackle, hooks, weights, so on and so forth. You can fish an A-rig. You can put whatever hooks you want to put on an A-rig. We make really good A-rig hooks, but you don't have to use it. All right. It does not have to be it can be an A-rig, any hooks on it, but it just has to have a V&M Baits swim bait on it.
Yes.
If you like a biffle head or anything like that you want to throw, you can throw that. Just has to have a V&M soft plastic on it.
Yep. Exactly.
I think that
pretty much covers it.
Anything else has to be a V&M. If any kind of jig or blade or anything like that has to be a V&M Baits product.
Real quick, lake levels, Rayburn's at 164.63. It's a difference of 2.76 inches low at this point. 10-day gain's been 4.08 inches. 24-hour gain's been 0.72 inches, so it's actually been on the rise. Toledo Bend, on the other hand, 169.97. It's 2.03 feet low. 10-day gain, as we talked about earlier, is 3.48 inches over the last 10 days. The 24-hour loss, though, has been 2.88 inches going the other way. So fork, I put fork in here. I know a lot of guys have been kind of, when's fork coming up? When's fork coming up? Well, guys, it's finally back up. 401.36 feet, close to pool, so about a little over, almost a little less than 2 foot low. Difference of 1.64 feet low. So 10-day gain has been 6.24 inches. Had that kind of written up wrong. And then 10-day gain, 10-day gain, 6 inches. 24-hour loss has been 0.6 inches. So it's kind of balanced itself out there, but it's been up and coming down. But anyway, they don't do generating there at Fork. So
right.
Now that it's back up, it should stay up for a while. Got a big rain coming probably this week. And so everything should be back to normal there. Special recognition real quick, Kevin. Caney Lake, Louisiana, Caney Lake here in Louisiana, 5-fish limit was weighed in a high school tournament, 37.13 pounds, and could be a new world record for high school bass fishing. That was the team of Mason McCormick and Alexis Virgilito. That's right, that's a girl. Alexis, that's Bradley Virgilito's daughter. Those of you that live in North Louisiana and Shreveport, Bossier know Bradley. They were representing the Bossier Parish bass team on Lake Caney. And so congratulations to those guys. They're obviously biting on Caney Lake right now.
Yeah, they caught them. I mean, that whole tournament, I was looking at results. They absolutely caught them. Now, I want to say they won by like 13 pounds. Something like that.
Blew it away.
But again, they had 37, so second place was 24.
Exactly.
High school tournament, that is very, very good.
Yeah.
I'm not surprised, Steve. I mean, Caney Lake, every year this time of year when, you know, and I know a couple weeks ago they really caught them on Caney as well, but Caney always spits out bags like this.
Yes.
This time of year.
Yep.
And you know, and I'm sure you was able to walk across boats on the water, but it still spits them out.
Right. One more thing, sign up for the Southwest Division of Solo 150 Tour. Event number 2 will be on Lake of the Pines, April 28th, 29th. Deadline to enter Friday, April 21st at 5 o'clock. Must have your entry in at that point. Entry fee is $600, so make sure you sign up. Don't miss that entry deadline date, and I'll continue to remind you that over the next 3 or 4 weeks. So before we have that event, next event. Also, we've got the Ray Scott National Championship coming up April 1st through the 8th. Out of Shreveport on Red River.
You're fishing that, right?
I'll be in that, qualified for that, and looking forward to fishing that. It's going to be high. Looks like the river is going to continue to be up. It's dropped about a foot in the last 2 days, but river, when it comes up, it tends to stay up for a while, and it's all about the water that comes from Texoma, Red River, Oklahoma corridor. That's what keeps the river up. As long as they're getting big showers up there, that keeps the river high down here. So, but either way, looking forward to that event. So, Kevin, good luck this weekend.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Bet y'all going to have a great turnout.
Hope so.
If you go to Toledo Bend this weekend, hey, guys, it's going to be crowded. Get ready because there's just a lot. There's a lot of people fishing, don't even fish tournaments.
It's going to be a beautiful weekend.
But it's going to be a great weekend for weather, and it's going to be a great weekend to go out and catch a few fish. So for Kevin Jean, I'm Steve Graff. Thank you for tuning us in. We appreciate each and every one of you. You want to be a sponsor of this particular program? Hey, send us a message on Facebook. Kevin will get a packet out to you ASAP, and we are looking to grow our sponsor list. So now's the time. We're averaging over 4,000 views a week. Make sure you be a part of this program. We'd love to have you. Looking forward to hearing from each and every one of you. And again, thank you for coming up to us at our events and speaking to us and telling us how you feel about the program. We can't say thank you enough. So for Kevin Jean, I'm Steve Graff. Looking forward to seeing you next week with more Tackle Talk Live.